and Random.
Coming up on this week's episode of Hip Hop Now podcast, Royce, the 5'9", wants hip hop smoke with RJ Payne and Ransom, or does he? The 25th anniversary of Jay-Z's debut album, Reasonable Doubt, and my thoughts on the new Tyler the Creator and DJ Drama album, Call Me If You Get Lost. Spoiler alert, top 5 of the year. I'm just saying, let's do it.
Let's get right to business.
Read these headlines. This album must be gone. This album must be gone.
Come to Hip Hop Podcast.
What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast, a podcast designed to catch you up on all things hip hop, music, and culture that happened throughout the week. Shout out to the producers of this podcast that kind of made what's happening right now happen at patreon.com/hiphopnow. Shout out to the returning listeners of this podcast who have been listening for years or months or whatever it may be to the audio version of Hip Hop Now podcast, a weekly news, hip hop, music, and culture podcast. And of course, as always, big shout out to the new listeners and viewers of Hip Hop Now podcast. Appreciate you. Hope you subscribe. Hope you stick around, hit that like button, all that good stuff. But first, before we get into any of the news, business going on in the hip hop streets, and there's a lot of it that I want to cover, almost knocked my damn drink over. This is sponsored by, it's not, but I'm going to take a sip anyway. But seriously, so this is the first episode of Hip Hop Now podcast being recorded on YouTube, a video version of me recording my podcast. Trust me, it's about 3 or 4 years in the making, to be honest. and that's simply because I kind of wanted to do it right. And at one point, it was Hip Hop Now podcast. If you listen to the anniversary shows, you know the story. But if you haven't, I'll get you up to speed. Hip Hop Now podcast started out more so as something I did, right? Something sort of a spin-off of what I used to do when I was on the radio. A lot of people like my perspective on hip hop. So I had created this segment called One to Flow On, where I talked about like a subject of the week in hip hop, gave my perspective on it, scripted and everything. At one point, I made that an actual podcast when I was off the radio, but then I turned it into Hip Hop Now because I figured that there were people out there like me who don't have a lot of time, but want to stay caught up on hip hop. So I figured, hey, about maybe 30 minutes of your time, get you caught up on the latest albums, happenings, and you also get my perspective on it. And started out modest as an audio podcast. And eventually I had to get a little bit more serious with my production. Now, if you don't know, I work in radio. I've been working in radio broadcasting for 20 plus years. So I know how to make a professional show, but I was a little lazy with this one. And then as the audience grew, well, I had to kind of sharpen my tools and step up my skills. So I focused mainly on the audio quality of the podcast, but there were people who were interested in me doing more. And the video part was always a part of that plan, but I kept putting it off because I was like, I don't know. I don't feel like I have the right setup. I don't know. I don't know exactly how I want to do it, right? And I was looking for this perfect way to do this video version of the podcast when at the end of the day, some people don't care if it's perfect as long as you're working on it and it's entertaining. And if they enjoy the show, it's the same thing. The only difference is you get to see it. You get to see the Yankee hat. You get to see the Drizzink in the his end. This isn't Douce. This is peanut butter whiskey with grape Fanta soda. It sounds disgusting, but it's delicious. I cannot front. If you're a kid, you know this is a family podcast. Don't do alcohol and drugs and stuff like that. But let's get right into the business. Big shout out to hiphopdx.com, allhiphop.com, Double XL Magazine, the Source Magazine.com, and a couple of other places where I'm getting some of these stories from. First and foremost, before we even read the first headline, there's one headline that kind of grabbed me earlier today and kind of felt compelled to say something in the beginning of this episode, sort of dedicate this episode to the memory of Gift Gab of Black Alicious, who passed away. I believe he passed away today. Another loss for hip hop. A lot of hip hop fans celebrating him, talking about him, remembering him on social media, from Chuck D to Evidence to LP, a number of people. I'm gonna be honest. I wasn't necessarily a Black Alicious fan. I had nothing against their music, obviously, but I can't lie to the public and say I was a hardcore fan or like, oh yeah, I know him like that, because I didn't. I heard of him. I remember their music. I remember it being dope for what it was. Unfortunately, when these things happen, you feel a little bit more compelled to go back and listen to whatever it was you missed. And it's an unfortunate situation. I believe he was in his 50s, which for some of y'all who are young, that's not that old, to be honest. I'm at the point now where I know people in their 50s and they're not really old like that. So rest in peace to Gift Gab. And let's do a moment of silence real quick. Rest in peace. Gizza, Rayquan, and Ghostface Killer announce 3 Chambers tour in celebration of 3 classic LPs. Now, before I click on this article, I'm going to guess. Gizza, Liquid Swords. There's no other Gizza album you could be talking about but that one. Rayquan and Ghost, right? You got to be talking about Cuban Links. You got to be talking about Only Built for Cuban Links. But if you want to separate them, right? RZA, Liquid Swords, Rayquan, Only Built for Cuban Links, Ghostface Killer, you gotta be talking about Supreme Clientele. But let's click on the article and humor the situation. So let's see what we can find. Let's see. Oh yeah, no, they are not. They're talking about Ghostface. I was right about 2, obviously, and wrong about 1. Ghostface Killer's 1996 debut, Iron Man, is one of the albums, and this 3-man tour with Ghost, Gizza, and Rayquan. I might have to go to this now that I look at it. I'm kind of hyped. But they're going to celebrate these 3 classic albums. Do y'all consider Iron Man a classic? I mean, it was a good album, don't get me wrong, but back then I didn't consider it a classic. I think it aged really well. I will say that. Maybe it is a classic. I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping. But let's see when the tour starts. The tour starts actually in October. So from October 1st to December 18th, they're going to hit cities up or hit places up like Minnesota, Illinois, Indiana, Colorado, Denver, of course, Chicago, San Francisco, Las Vegas, LA, Rochester, Boston, Philadelphia, New York, New Haven, Connecticut, Hampton Beach, in the Hamptons, New Hampshire, if you don't know, Portland, Norfolk, Virginia, Silver Springs, Maryland, Richmond, Virginia, Baltimore, Greensboro, North Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia, Detroit, Cleveland, and Indianapolis. Always get tripped up with that, but sounds like a dope tour. 3 chambers tour. I don't know. I might have to hit that New York one, man, because I don't know. I'm still stuck though. Y'all really consider, do y'all consider Iron Man a classic? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. And one thing I'm going to do with this show, if I didn't let y'all know, let me take a quick drink break. What I'm going to do with this video version of Hip Hop Now podcast is I'm adding, because I forgot to mention this, but I'm adding a comments at the end of the show, right? So anybody who's watching this, whether you have a reaction to something that's being said as far as regarding a story or or just a general comment or question in regards to hip hop and hip hop news, definitely leave your comments in the comment section in the chat, and I'll make sure to hit up 1 or 2, maybe pick 3 of the most, I don't know, dopest questions or comments or whatever. Not trying to alienate anyone, but you feel me. Recently, Tyler the Creator dropped a brand new album with DJ Drama entitled Call Me If You Get Lost. It is a 16-track album. And I must just say this. This isn't a review. This is more of an impressions. I'm thinking about reviewing it. But I'll say this much about it as far as my thoughts on the album. I think the album is great. Off the first listen, I listened to the album twice. Off the first listen, I was already on this might be in my top 5 of the year. It was really that good. Now, I will say this much. It depends on where. I think Tyler the Creator has been in the game long enough for I don't know, for him to have different looks, right? He released an album called Igor where he was doing majority singing. I think it was all singing, which was pretty dope for what it was. But for anybody who's a fan of the Odd Future Wolfgang days, they might have been disappointed in that. Well, I'll say this much about this new album with DJ Drama. It's a little bit of both, but I think it works. And I like the way it's set up. And I was highly impressed by it. I was surprised at how much I was really into it. Not that I'm not a fan. I mean, I'm not his biggest fan in the world, but I'm also not a hater. And I liked Igor and I liked a couple of other joints he put out, but I didn't know what to expect. And I think the first single really pulled my interest in. The first single was called Lumberjack. And by the time I got to the second song, which is called Corso, I was like, yo, this joint sounded aight. Like I was really feeling it. So, as in if you don't know, I gave it the gym test. That's what I do. If you're new to Hip Hop Now podcast, when I listen to some new music, I give it the gym test, meaning I work out to it. And if it grabs my attention or surprises me, so be it. But nevertheless, it was a really good project, and I was surprised by how much I really dug it. So I would say this: stay tuned. There's a chance I may do a review of it probably next week. I'm thinking maybe Wednesday because I need to sit with it a little bit longer and also to see if there's still conversation around it. So we'll see. This article is on hiphopdx.com. Cardi B says female rappers are the most disrespected despite making great music. Interesting. Interesting. Are they? Are they considered to be the most disrespected despite making great music? That is to me, that's a deep statement with a lot of truth to it, but also a couple caveats. Let's talk about those caveats real quick. So, if you're talking about Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, maybe Nicki Minaj, Summer Girls, female MCs like that, female rappers like that, she has a point. If you're talking about Rhapsody, she has a point. But they're two different points. I think when you're talking about the Cardi B's, the Megan Thee Stallions, the Summer Girls, that style of female MCing or MCing in general, but MCing from the ladies, I think you're basically talking about you're basically talking about I hate to say it, but Jermaine Dupri said it, right? So we're gonna blame him. Stripper rappers, stripper music. The music can be so disposable, right? Because it's hot. It's extremely hot. It's extremely dope. As far as music and mood, but then you're kind of done with it, right? You're done with it quick, and you're like, either give me some more or go away, right? And I feel like it's sort of unfair, but I feel like it's the nature of the type of music they make, the type of hip hop they make. Whereas Rhapsody and that style of rapping and her music, it has more substance to it, right? There's enough there to discover on multiple listens. Sure, it may not be the let's get lit summer girl party type situation, but at the end of the day, there's enough there for you as a fan, as a listener, to sink your teeth into, right? And I think what Cardi B fails to realize is it's a paradox, right? Because Cardi B is the same person who said that if she wasn't rapping about what she rapped about, no one would care. Now, that's not exactly true. It's just that you wouldn't be as popular as you are. That's true. But somebody would care if you was like putting more thought into your music and not rapping about your box all the time. But nevertheless, sex sells. You and your team know that's kind of the wave. Hold up. So it's kind of difficult to even disagree with Cardi B when she says something like that. But at the same time, you can't get frustrated with a business that sees you in that light and you benefit off of that light, right? No one looks at Rhapsody as getting naked and stripper music because she just doesn't do it, right? But what's the drawback for her? She doesn't sell as well. She's not as popular as a Cardi B or Megan Thee Stallion. But so what, right? The way I see it, there's enough room for Rhapsody. I would love for Rhapsody to be just as popular or famous or successful as a Cardi B, but I feel like I could listen to both. But if Cardi B is feeling like, okay, we got the money, we got the notoriety and the fame, but our music isn't appreciated as much as the guys, I mean, I hate to say it, but maybe you got to chill on a video or two and just put some clothes on in one video. Like we got mad videos where we get to see everything, every fantasy, any guy or girl watching your videos, they have really seen it already. So I don't think one video where you just do something that's just a little bit deeper, a little bit more thoughtful, without having to take off your clothes and look, I don't know, maybe that video exists, but I ain't seen it. I tell you that much. But again, I feel where she's coming from. I feel what she's saying. I definitely agree. There's a double standard in hip hop. It's unfortunate. But if your rap career and your name was made off of selling sex because that's what the audience wants and that's what you felt comfortable with getting rich off of or doing, what do you want? You know what I'm saying? It's stop, full stop, and start doing something else. Um, I mean, just gonna be more mad because some people are really gonna stop messing with you, but it is what it is. So recently in hip hop competitiveness, Jim Jones, it was said before that how even it's exhausting to even say it, but how he wanted smoke with any rapper and he just named anybody. And then Conway was kind of like going heavy, responding like, yo, let's do this and blah, 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 blah. And we know damn well Conway would smoke Jim Jones in a battle. Easy, easy. Well, going through Instagram, I happened to notice that Royce the 5'9" posted a screenshot of RJ Payne saying that RJ Payne and Ransom are the best out lyrically. And Royce the 5'9" makes some statements to essentially say he wanted that smoke. He was with it on some rap stuff, basically calling them out. Now, before that, I had noticed Royce the 5'9" making statements about being the best and kind of touting his lyricism, and even Eminem's kind of flaunting it, right? And I could tell, like, damn, he kind of itching to maybe he got an album coming out or something, or some verses, or a battle with somebody, or whatever the case may be. And then this happened, and this happened today. If you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. But nevertheless, he went live on Instagram. So I'm like, oh, he probably about to talk about it. I'm working, but let me tap in. And I go into Instagram live and it's Royce the 5'9" and Lupe Fiasco. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I almost immediately left the room. Nothing against Lupe. I got a number of Lupe Fiasco albums, but I didn't know what this was because I'm like, well, where you come? Why is Lupe here? But whatever. So I caught a glimpse of what they were saying, and Race the 5'9" was, it seemed like Lupe was like, oh, you starting stuff, but I'm here for it, blah, blah, blah. Almost as if Lupe just wanted to join the foray of battle rapping, basically. So I left the room because I had to work. Nothing against them, but the smoke wasn't really happening. Working, looking at Instagram, then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, Royce the 5'9" is now in a room with RJ Payne and Ransom. The two cats he said he wanted that rap smoke with, essentially. I'm not quoting him. I don't have the, you know what? I think I do have it in front of me. Hold tight. So we can quote this man on his statements about hip hop and smoke. All right. So I got to take a drink first. So here's what RJ Payne posted. Right now, nobody is rapping better than me and Ransom. And hashtag, yeah, I said it. I like the way you talking, RJ Payne. I like the way you talk. Well, Royce the 5'9" reposted that post And this is what he had to say, and I quote, "Yeah, you said it. Ransom said it too. According to the Constitution, 69 can say it too." Y'all know who you're talking about, Takashi. Rappers say things, but I'm about that contact and I grew up with brothers, so I don't mind squaring up with family. All y'all keep talking about y'all the best, like y'all don't see me standing here with all these war wounds. From now on, I'm from Missouri, so call me when y'all are ready to stop manifesting and bring your headgear along with your right mind because y'all seem to be out of y'all's. Sincerely, the Detroit N word. So you can see why I was like popping in and out of work, like, yo, I need to pay attention to Instagram. And you can see when I saw that Royce the 5'9" was in the Instagram with Ransom and RJ Payne, I was like, whoa, let me tune in. Well, for those who were too busy to tune in, I walked into the room just hoping to catch a glimpse, maybe hang out for a while I work and type. And Royce the 5'9" was like on the peace talks. And then I felt like maybe I misunderstood. And I think I did. Because Royce the 5'9" was talking a lot about, you know, we brothers and push the bar and um, like push each other and stuff like that. Some real peace treaty stuff. And I'm from the old school. I'm like, where the smoke at? Not beef, but the rap smoke. Where the rap smoke? So I like it, but I don't like it. It was sort of like Kendrick Lamar's Control, because it's his song. Sorry, Big Sean. Without being that. Royce the 5'9" was trying to call people out to like, yo, let's just push each other to make something competitive. Now, I left the room, obviously, but not to spend too much time on this. My only thing with this situation was I think I would have preferred if it was like a little bit of animosity that led to some bars, but it eventually became chummy and led to some more collabos where, the joint is just dope and you just celebrate hip hop at the end of it all. But I also walked away feeling like, did we get played as hip hop fans? Did Royce the 5'9" do that on purpose? Did RJ Payne post that maybe sincerely and Royce the 5'9" hit them like, oh, I'm gonna kind of go at y'all? Or maybe he didn't tell them. Because when you think about it, Royce the 5'9's exposure or his I would say his fan base, you can say is bigger than that 'cause, I mean shit, he did a joint album with Eminem, so no, I'm not supposed to cuss, it's family podcast. But he did a joint with Eminem, so you already know he's Eminem's man. You already know his fan base is probably clearly bigger than RJ Payne's and Ransom's. But RJ Payne just released a new project, which is dope, and so did Ransom. And it kind of felt like low key promotion for them, right? Because if you're a fan of Royce the 5'9" and Eminem, and that's all you know, and you watch Royce the 5'9" every time he talk, and you follow everything he say, if he's telling you, yo, these cats over here, you know what I'm saying, we want the hip hop smoke because they nice and I'm nice, well, now you're gonna go check them out, right? I would. So it was like low key promotion at the same time. Maybe that's why Lupe was in there. Like, yo, I want some. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Maybe felt that way. Who asked him to be there? Whatever. Um, but I mean, that's kind of how I walked away with the whole situation, feeling like, all right, well, this isn't what I thought it would be. Now, let me ask y'all this. And again, the chat room is open. If there's questions or comments regarding anything that's being said with any of these stories, please leave it in the chat. I will possibly read it if you keep it clean, right? At the end of this episode of Hip Hop Now podcast. But nevertheless, I kind of started to feel like, all right, well, that it's fine that he did that for whatever reason he did that, but I just don't I just wonder about it. And I know a couple of hip hop fans who didn't like it when they thought it was a competitive thing, right? Which struck me as a little bit strange considering hip hop's history and nature. Like, if you are of a certain age, even if you weren't born way back in the days or wasn't around way back in the days for hip hop, like when it started and had all these rules, you understand what competitive is about. It's like hand in hand with hip hop. Braggadocious raps are all about being the best. It's not about, well, let me say what I say and don't say anything. No, we all trying to be the best or say we're the best. So what is the point of saying it if you don't truly believe it when opposed by competition? See, to me, people who say stuff like that, especially if you rap, have you been in battles before? Have you been in a cipher before where you already know your bars is not, up to snuff or better than this cat or whatever the case? Like, you gauge how the different MCs rhyme, and you, when it's your turn, you rap the way you rap. So again, I thought it was fine. I don't mind a little competition. But I would at least want the competition to feel a little bit more authentic as opposed to, words that sound like we was going to get a sparring match. But at the end of the day, it's really probably something he should have just said to them personally, and not get our hip hop hopes up. But this week is a very slow week in news. Now, if you listen to this podcast, Hip Hop Now podcast, you already know, right? I don't like to waste too much time on things that don't have to do with music or albums or the culture in general, meaning who got arrested, who got shot. And typically, I don't like to focus on beefs, at least not all the time. So we don't have too many articles. But one big thing did happen. Today, if you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. But June 25th, 1996, Jay-Z released his debut album on Rockefeller, Freeze, and Priority Records, Reasonable Doubt. My favorite album in Jay-Z's catalog, hands down. I'll tell you why. And probably the album that newer Jay-Z fans almost never think about, right? Because a lot of newer Jay-Z fans either came along, it's like, oh, well, I started listening, it's like phases, right? It's like, oh, I started listening to Jay-Z with Hard Knock Life album. Oh, I started listening when he dropped the Blueprint. Or, oh, me, I came around with the Black album. Or if you're crazy, oh yeah, I just got here. 444 was my, which is fine. But Reasonable Doubt is the beginning. 25 years ago in 1996, Jay-Z was finally able to chase down the industry and release something worthy, maybe according to him, right? For hip hop. You got to understand, this man was like around since the 80s, right? For real, for real. He was young, obviously, but he was around in the hip hop game with Jazzo. And he finally gets to release his album, but it's like 1996, right? And he changed up his style. Um, Records like You a Customer kind of introduced us to, especially the remix, which is dope. kind of introduced us to Jay-Z in a new light without the rap like the Fushnikins flow and all that good stuff. But I remember Reasonable Doubt. I remember prior to Reasonable Doubt coming out, I've told the story a million times on my podcast and other places. I remember being in B Street, downtown Brooklyn, looking for music. And this is before 96. This might have been like 95. And this cat passed me this sampler tape. It's like, yo, Jay-Z, album coming soon. Reasonable Doubt, blah, 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 whatever he said. Looked at the joint. I was like, all right. Went and listened to it. I was like, yo, this is crazy. Had a couple of records off of Reasonable Doubt on there. I think Can't Knock the Hustle was on there. Only a Customer, which wasn't on the album, was on there. I think Feeling It was on this sampler also. But at the same time, I was kind of like, yo, Jay-Z, he's all right. I was anticipating the album. So in 96, when it dropped, I went and bought it. And I remember initially feeling like it didn't meet my expectations. And I tell you why. I said this on my other podcast that time in hip hop. In 1996, there was so much heat coming out. There was Muddy Waters. The Tupac was going crazy with all his music. You had A Tribe Called Quest with Beats, Rhymes, and Life. Nas had his follow-up to Illmatic. So the minute people saw Nas is coming in the Source magazine, people were like, that's all they cared about. It was written. That's all people were anticipating. And so Jay-Z was kind of like under the radar, except for those heads like myself who were waiting for it. So I remember when I bought it and I was sort of disappointed, even though it had a lot of good features on there, from Biggie to Mary J. Blige to Foxy Brown, who was new at the time. So there was a lot of stuff that was dope on there, but I just felt like the production of other albums, when you listen to It Was Written or Muddy Waters, or even Beats, Rhymes, and Life, the sound was bigger and bolder sounding. And Reasonable Doubt was really chill and subdued. And for those features that he had on the album, I just expected something grander beat-wise. Well, I tell you this much. When I listen and I listen again, and over time, again, I said this before, but I realized that this was different. And that's kind of what made it special. No one was rapping like Jay-Z was from his perspective and what he was rapping about. Jay-Z wasn't the hustler who slaved on the street corners hand in hand. He was the Stringer Bell type for the Wire fans out there. That's what it was like, you know what I'm saying? And this was before the Wire. And it felt like a dude whose ambitions and goals were clear, and they were much bigger than a chain or a car or a bunch of women. All of that stuff was included, but you had a man who was talking about yachts and not talking about Bacardi and Hennessy, but talking about champagne, right? The finest champagne, talking about wearing platinum instead of gold when everybody else was. So Jay-Z was kind of like ahead of his time in a lot of ways, or more so like upper class hip hop. Let's put it that way. And Reasonable Doubt aged really well. And when you think about some of those things that I said, you hear it, you see it on the cover. You can put it side by side with any of the albums that came out then from other rappers, and it really stands alone in its own corner as a really dope hip hop album from a different type of perspective when it came to a hustler. So 25 years of Reasonable Doubt. Jay-Z said it competes for his favorite album, with The Blueprint being the other one. But for me, hands down, Reasonable Doubt was my favorite. What do you think about Reasonable Doubt on its 25th anniversary? Did you like the album back then? Do you think it aged well? Leave your comments in the comment section below. That's going to do it for me for this week. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Clubhouse, and all that at Vegas World INC. And please know that this podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts. All you have to do is go to your favorite podcasting app, type in the words Hip Hop Now Podcast, subscribe, and stay locked in. And if you want to check out the video version of this podcast, all you have to do is visit the B-Roll Network on YouTube, BROLE Network, separate words, except for the letter that came first. But you get what I'm saying. And hit that subscribe button and stay locked in to brand new content every week. Until next time, y'all, I am not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace.
Drop it on the random.